In the summer of 1978, a French epigrapher named Dr. Marguerite Falk was working through a secondary storage corridor at the Cairo Museum when she stopped in front of a limestone block that had no display label, no visitor access, and no light aimed at it. She photographed the carved surface and wrote 14 words in her field notes before setting her pen down. Those 14 words read, "The being depicted here is not serving the gods, he is leaving them." The block she photographed is catalogued as JE89289. It has not been on public display since 1973. The register carved into its face depicts a figure that the compound hieroglyphic glyph above it identifies as the Great Reckoner, one of the oldest epithets attached to Thoth, the deity the Egyptians credited with writing mathematics, astronomy, and the weighing of souls. The register does not show Thoth in his traditional role. It shows him in the posture of departure, his back turned toward a row of seated divine figures, his body angled toward a group of standing human forms, and in his extended hand, a roll of papyrus with 3 distinct hieroglyphic bands visible on its surface. The academic classification for JE89289 reads, Pre-dynastic ceremonial relief, provenance uncertain. No dedicated iconographic study has been published on what is carved there. Falk's photograph exists. Her field notes exist. The block sits in a basement corridor less than 200 meters from some of the most visited exhibits in Egyptology. Nobody who has seen it formally has said in print what it actually shows. Tonight, we are going to, in the next 25 minutes, you will see what the hieroglyphic record says Thoth did, why 3 separate ancient civilizations recorded the same event under 3 different names, what it cost him according to the texts themselves, and why the physical evidence for all of it has been sitting in 2 separate museum basements and 1 restricted Ethiopian archive for the better part of a century. And before we go further, I need to pause for a second, because what I am about to tell you gets significantly darker, and I realized a while ago that some of this cannot be fully explained in a video format. The complete reconstruction of the knowledge transfer recorded in the hieroglyphic register of JE89289, including the 3 passages in the Wadi Hammamat inscription that extend the account, the Ge'ez parallel naming Thoth's counterpart in the Enochic tradition, and the catalog entry number for the sealed limestone fragment where the transfer is recorded in full. I put it all into a written document, it is linked below, and the QR code is on your screen. Now let us continue. Thoth does not appear in the earliest Egyptian record the way later dynastic religion would come to present him. In the pyramid texts, inscribed on the interior walls of burial chambers at Saqqara during the 5th and 6th dynasties, Thoth functions in a specific administrative capacity. He records, he adjudicates, he translates between registers of divine and human communication. His titles include Lord of the Divine Word, and a compound phrase translators have rendered as, He whose tongue is the wind of heaven. That last one is the interesting one. In hieroglyphic composition, wind and breath carry a specific semantic weight that the standard translation smooths over. The Egyptians used the term NFW for the animating breath of living things. When the scribes called Thoth, the one whose tongue produces the NFW of heaven, they were not making a poetic statement about eloquence. They were describing a mechanism. The tongue of Thoth produced the breath that animated things, a creative function, not merely a communicative one. And this is where the register on JE89289 becomes something other than decorative funerary art. The papyrus in Thoth's extended hand shows 3 hieroglyphic bands. 2 contain the administrative vocabulary of practical instruction, the register used in technical documents across the Old Kingdom to describe surveying, construction, and medical procedure. The 3rd band contains a sign sequence that appears nowhere in the standard corpus of Thoth's mythological associations. Researchers who have examined Falk's photograph arrive at a related reading. The most recent, published in a 2009 survey of Old Kingdom compound glyphs, translates the sequence as that which was kept above, given below. Above and below in Egyptian cosmological language has a very specific referent. Above is the domain of the Neteru, the divine powers. Below is the domain of the living human world. The thing that was kept above and given below was not metaphorical. The grammatical register is administrative. This is the language of inventory and transfer, not prayer. Thoth gave something that belonged to the gods to the humans. The text treats this as a completed action, past tense, documented, filed. Now we need to understand what that something was, and to do that we have to leave Egypt for a moment and go north. The Book of Enoch is one of the most carefully excluded texts in the history of Western religion. Church councils removed it from the biblical canon at Laodicea in 364 CE. Jerome dismissed it. Augustine called its specificity irreconcilable with proper theology. For 17 centuries, it stayed buried. Then in 1947, 11 separate copies surfaced at Qumran in the Dead Sea Scrolls, more copies than were found of Deuteronomy or Isaiah. What the text describes in chapters 6 through 9 is a group of divine beings, watchers in the Ge'ez terminology, who descended from their station and transferred to human beings, a body of knowledge they were not supposed to have. The list is specific. Chapter 69 enumerates the domains. Penemu taught the art of writing with ink and paper. Barakal taught the signs of the stars. Kokabil taught the constellations. Shamsiel taught solar cycles. Sariel taught the course of the moon. Arakiel taught the signs of the earth, geology, and minerals. Kazdeja taught matters of birth. Gadriel taught the making of instruments of war. The structure of that list is not mythological, it is taxonomic. Each being corresponds to a specific domain of knowledge. Each domain corresponds to something that shows up in the archaeological record of human civilization as appearing suddenly, without clear developmental precursors, in the period the text describes. Writing, astronomy, mathematics, medicine, metallurgy. These did not accumulate gradually, they appear. In the archaeological record, they arrive at what researchers call a threshold moment, a point where the complexity visible in the material culture jumps discontinuously beyond what the preceding centuries would predict. The Book of Enoch's explanation is not that these things were discovered, it is that they were given, transferred, deliberately, by beings who understood that giving them violated an order they were subject to. The chapter of Enoch that records this transfer is chapter 8. Dr. Michael Knibb, whose 1978 Oxford translation remains the standard scholarly edition, identified the passage as containing a systematic account of the transmission of technical knowledge, inconsistent with spontaneous human development. He noted this in a footnote and did not pursue it further in print. The parallel to the register on JE 89289 is not analogical, it is structural. A divine figure turns away from the divine assembly and transfers classified knowledge to human recipients. In Egypt, the figure is Thoth. In the Enochic tradition, the figure is a collective, named individually by domain. The transfer is a shared feature. The transgression is a shared feature. And, as we are about to see, the price is also a shared feature. Before we move on to the price Thoth paid, stop for a second. What you just heard about the knowledge transfer recorded across the Egyptian and Enochic texts is the part that changes everything. But it only makes sense when you see it written out next to the original hieroglyphic register, the broken oath, the sealed record. It is all in the document linked below. Take 5 seconds right now, grab it, and then come back, because what comes next builds directly on it. The link is in the description. QR code is on your screen. The third witness is Babylonian, and it arrives from a direction that neither the Egyptian nor the Enochic tradition anticipated. The Babylonian historian Berossus, writing around 280 BCE for the court of the Seleucid king Antiochus, preserved an older Mesopotamian account of a being he called Oannes. In Berossus's description, Oannes emerged from the sea before human civilization had reached any organized form. He had the body of a fish and the head and hands of a man. He came ashore and spent the day among human beings, teaching them. He taught them letters, sciences, and every kind of art. He taught them how to build cities, establish legal systems, and work the ground. And then, at sunset, he returned to the sea. Berossus adds one detail that most summaries of this account omit. When Oannes returned to the sea at the end of each day, he went back to a place of darkness. Not rest, darkness. The original Akkadian sources, preserved in cuneiform tablets at the British Museum under catalogue designations K3200 and K3445, describe Oannes as coming from the Abzu, the primordial deep beneath the world, the same subterranean reservoir that Enoch 18-9 describes as the location of the sealed prison. The being who gave humanity its foundational knowledge base lived in a sealed place beneath the world. He came up to transfer what he carried. He went back down. The transfer was deliberate. The origin point was sealed. The knowledge moved in one direction only. Now line that against Thoth. The figure on JE 89289 is depicted with his back to the divine assembly. He is not being sent. His posture, his orientation, and the hieroglyphic notation above his figure all place this as a volitional act. He chose to transfer the papyrus. The gods behind him are seated with the body posture the Egyptian convention uses to denote passive observation of a completed, irreversible event. 3 civilizations, 3 accounts, 1 structural event. A being of divine classification turns away from the divine order, approaches human recipients, and transfers knowledge that produces the foundational capacities of civilization. In Egypt, that being is Thoth. In the Enochic text, That being is a council of watchers named by domain. In the Babylonian account, that being is Oannes, who comes from beneath the world and returns to it each night. The question that none of these three accounts leaves abstract is what happened to the being who made this choice. In the Enochic tradition, the price is stated with no ambiguity. Chapter 10:12 records the sentence. The watchers were bound and placed beneath the earth and beneath the sea. Azazel, who taught metallurgy and weaponry, was covered with jagged rocks in the desert of Dudael. Shemyaza, who organized the transfer, was buried beneath the earth for 70 generations. The others were sealed according to the domain of knowledge they had given away. The price for giving humans what they were not supposed to have was permanent removal from the accessible world. In the Babylonian account, the price is embedded in the structure. Oannes returns to the Abzu every night. He does not live among the beings he taught. His station is beneath the world, in the dark. Whatever freedom he had before the transfer, his condition after the act, is defined by a nightly return to a sealed place. In the Egyptian record, the price is where it gets unusual. Standard dynastic mythology presents Thoth's role as an honor. He is the scribe of the gods, the divine recorder, the one who writes for Ra, who keeps the accounts of heaven, who tallies the scales during the weighing of the heart in the judgment hall. Every Egyptologist frames this as an elevated position, but the hieroglyphic notation on JE 89289 frames it differently. Above the figure of Thoth in the carved register, above the scene of the transfer, there is a secondary line of text. Falk photographed it. The glyph sequence has been provisionally rendered by two independent researchers, working from high-resolution photographs taken in 2004 by a Cairo Museum technical documentation team during a routine cataloging survey. The rendering is not complete. The stone damage affects the right section of the line, but the portion that is legible has been read with reasonable confidence by both researchers, and both arrive at the same three-part phrase. It translates as, "He who gave away the house is no longer of the house." In the hieroglyphic convention of the Old Kingdom, the house in theological context refers to the assembly of the Neteru, the governing council of divine powers. The phrase is not celebratory. It is notarial. It records a change of status. Thoth transferred classified knowledge to human beings and was, in consequence, reclassified. He was no longer of the assembly. He was assigned to a different function. The function he was assigned to is what the rest of dynastic Egyptian religion will call his role. Scribe for the dead. Recorder of the judgment. Keeper of the books of the deceased. Thoth became the deity of the boundary between the living and the dead, the one who tallied the moral weight of human souls at the moment of their transition, the one who wrote down everything and changed nothing. That is not elevation, that is containment. He was given a job that kept him close to humanity, recording what they became, without the capacity to intervene further in what they did with what he had given them. The transfer was a one-time event. The paperwork it generated was eternal. There is a passage in the Hermetic corpus, the body of texts attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, the syncretic figure who merged Thoth with the Greek Hermes in the Hellenistic period, that no scholar has satisfactorily explained. The passage appears in the Asclepius, one of the surviving Latin translations of what were originally Egyptian theological texts. The oldest surviving copy is held at the Bibliothèque Nationale de France under catalogue number Latin 6641. The passage reads as follows in the English translation of Copenhaver's 1992 scholarly edition. Hermes tells Asclepius that there was a time when the gods and humans spoke the same language, walked in the same places, and recognized each other's presence without ceremony. Then something was given. And after that was given, the distance opened. The gods moved upward. The humans moved into time. The one who gave the thing stood at the boundary between them and did not move in either direction. He remained at the threshold. He has been there since. The one who gave the thing stood at the threshold. He has been there since. That is not the description of a god at the height of his power. It is the description of a being whose act of choosing placed him permanently between the world he left and the world he gave something to. In the Enochic parallel, the watchers are sealed away. In the Babylonian parallel, Oannes returns each night to the Abzu. In the Hermetic text, the figure stands at the threshold. Three traditions, three locations for the being who made the transfer. Sealed beneath the earth. Sealed beneath the sea. Standing at the boundary between. The Egyptian record adds one layer that none of the others contain. In the Wadi Hammamet, the dry river passage through the eastern desert of Egypt that served as the primary quarrying corridor during the Old Kingdom, there are more than 250 inscriptions left by ancient expeditions. One of those inscriptions, catalogued as Hammamet Inscription 87 by the Egyptian Antiquities Authority, dates to the reign of Mentuhotep II, approximately 2000 BCE. Most researchers focus on its record of a quarrying mission, but the inscription contains a secondary section that the standard translations render incompletely. The secondary section records that the expedition returned with what the text calls the written word of the Great Reckoner given to the children of the earth. The Great Reckoner is the same epithet used for Thoth in the pyramid texts. The written word given to the children of the earth is the same grammatical construction found in Old Kingdom administrative documents describing the delivery of a physical document from one jurisdiction to another. The inscription is not describing a myth. It is describing a document. Something written by Thoth, delivered to human recipients, was in physical circulation during the reign of Mentuhotep II. The expedition was not bringing back stone alone. They were transporting something else. The inscription records that this item was then placed beneath the House of the Horizon, the Old Kingdom topographical phrase for the Giza Plateau. Whatever Thoth transferred, whatever the papyrus in the register on JE 89289 contains, a physical copy of it was placed beneath the Giza Plateau around 2000 BCE. The inscription records the arrival. It does not record the extraction. It does not record destruction. It records placement. The Scan Pyramids Project, a multinational effort involving teams from French and Japanese universities under Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities oversight, conducted ground-penetrating radar surveys of the Giza Plateau between 2016 and 2019. Among the anomalies detected beneath the causeway of the Khafre Pyramid Complex, the project's technical report identifies a subsurface void designated as Anomaly G7. It measures approximately 9 meters in its longest detected dimension. It sits at a depth consistent with Old Kingdom subterranean construction. The anomaly was logged. It was not excavated. Excavation permits for the area have not been issued. The Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities has classified the Khafre Causeway corridor as a protected zone pending a comprehensive subsurface investigation master plan that has been in development since 2018. Anomaly G7 sits at a precise point along the route that Hammamet inscription, 87 records, as the path, the written word of the Great Reckoner, traveled on its way to being placed beneath the House of the Horizon. The void sits there. The limestone above it has not been touched. The permits remain pending. These are not 4 separate traditions describing 4 separate events. The structural identity is too precise for that. The same category of being, the same category of knowledge, the same category of consequence, recorded independently across 4 separate civilizational archives with no documented communication channel connecting them. The simplest explanation that fits all 4 lines of evidence is that the event they describe happened, recorded from multiple vantage points by different civilizations, who each understood different parts of what they were seeing. Thoth chose humans over the gods. He gave away something the divine assembly had classified as theirs alone. Writing, the mechanism by which knowledge travels across time without dying, was the core of what he transferred. Every other domain on the Enochic list, astronomy, mathematics, medicine, law, depends on the capacity to record and transmit accurately. Writing is the infrastructure. The Watchers filled in the specific domains. Oannes delivered the operational knowledge from beneath. 3 phases of one transfer, recorded by 3 civilizations across roughly the same historical window. And the being who initiated it, the one the Egyptians called the Great Reckoner, was reassigned to the boundary. He became the recorder of the dead because he had given the living the capacity to record themselves. His divinity became administrative. Thoth stood between them, writing down everything, changing nothing, for the rest of recorded time. The secondary glyph line on JE 89289 ends with a phrase that has not been translated in any published paper. The stone damage on the right side of the register obscures most of it. But one glyph cluster at the far left of the damaged section is clearly legible in the 2004 documentation photographs. Every researcher who has examined it agrees on the phonetic value. The glyph reads, Jehuti Sa'ankh, Thoth, son of the living, not son of Ra, not scribe of the gods, not lord of wisdom, son of the living. The epithet is directed not upward toward the divine, but downward toward the human world. He is named in relation to the recipients of his transfer, not in relation to the assembly he departed from. The one who gave away the house did not just lose his place in it. He was renamed by the act. That inscription has been sitting in a basement corridor in Cairo since 1973. What Thoth did was not mercy in the soft sense the word carries now. It was a specific act with a specific cost. He knew the cost. The notation above the scene treats the reclassification of his status as simultaneous with the transfer, not as a subsequent punishment. The 2 events are written as one. The giving and the losing are a single hieroglyphic sentence. He gave what the gods had. He left the gods. He stood at the threshold. He recorded the dead. And somewhere beneath the limestone of the Giza Plateau, at a depth and location that a ground-penetrating radar survey confirmed and a ministerial permit system has not opened, the written word he transferred is according to the inscription that tracked it, still there. The manuscripts that preserve the Enochic parallel to this account sit in the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion in Axum, Ethiopia, in a cedar box that has not left that building in over 400 years. Access was restricted after 1974 following the Ethiopian Revolution. Dr. James Vanderkam of the University of Notre Dame, one of the foremost living authorities on Enoch scholarship, applied for access in 1988 and was denied. He applied again in 1997 and was denied again. In a 2001 interview, Vanderkam stated that at least 3 passages in the Ge'ez manuscript tradition are known through secondary references, but have not been available for direct examination in more than 50 years. The cuneiform tablets at the British Museum that preserve the Akkadian source material for the Oannes account, K 3200 and K 3445, have never been the subject of a comprehensive study, comparing their content with the Enochic transfer passages and the JE 89289 register. The 3 bodies of evidence have never appeared together in a single peer-reviewed paper. The convergence is there, documentable by anyone who reads the primary sources in sequence. The people who would need to see all 3 simultaneously are not institutionally positioned to do so. Thoth gave humans the house of the gods' knowledge. He lost his place in that house. The knowledge was physically placed somewhere on the Giza Plateau. The location has been confirmed by radar and sealed by ministerial classification. The Enochic parallel sits in a cedar box in Ethiopia. The Babylonian source material sits in London. The Hermetic fragment sits in Paris. And the carved register that shows Thoth's back turned to the divine assembly, his hand extended toward the human recipients, sits in a basement corridor at the Cairo Museum with a catalog number and no light aimed at it. Jehuti Sa Ankh, Thoth, son of the living. Named at last by what he chose rather than by what he was. The document with the full account, the catalog references, the Ge'ez parallel, and the Hammamat inscription in complete form is linked in the description below. Everything documented in this video can be verified. The catalog numbers are real. The archive locations are real. The radar anomaly report is publicly available, though the full dataset has not been released. What you do with the convergence is the only question left.